Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today's June 15th, and right now we're looking at the visible satellite imagery. You can see the sun rising across the Pacific Ocean here. If you take a look at the clouds out here, you can kind of see the strong jet stream pointed at the west coast of North America right now. This energy here will eventually help to squash this ridge and bring a deep trough across the Pacific Northwest for some active weather here. We'll take a look at those details here in a moment. And if you want a nice affordable home weather station, click on the link down below for 10% off. All solar powered, totally wireless here, ultrasonic anemometer. Highly recommend this station. This is my house. It builds this forecast for you custom at your weather station there, and it stores all this data for you in the cloud for free. Here we go. Late spring mountain snow next week. Great Falls, Montana. You can see some of the higher terrain potentially picking up some snowfall. It's still pretty high, but it is June. It's mid-June here, and so you should people in the backcountry should be prepared for some of these winter conditions. Some snow potential for the Cascades as well. We'll take a look at the weather models on that here in a moment. This is for Pendleton, Oregon. You can see, relative warmth here Friday, Saturday. Then you can see the drop off here occur as you go on into early next week coming out. So probably 3 days here at least with some temperatures well below normal here coming up. This is a wider view of things. This is actually the entire planet here. We're looking up towards 250 millibars, way up into the atmosphere, over 30,000 feet up there. And you can see the southern hemisphere, the jet streams are generally stronger. It is their winter season down there. It's summertime up here across the northern hemisphere, at least meteorologically speaking anyway. And you can see the weaker jet streams in action here. If you put it into motion, you can actually see us right here. Here's the Gulf of Alaska. There's Pacific Northwest. And you can see this trough just carve out. Look at that strongest jet stream at 250 millibars there across the northern hemisphere, carving out that trough there for the Pacific Northwest. And you can see these jet streams down there, very persistent. Of course, like I said, the winter season. But you can put that into motion and you can kind of just watch the circulation of the atmosphere at the upper levels. Now here we go. This is looking at 700 millibar temperatures here. And if I put this into motion here, you can clearly see this very cold air here, and you can see it kind of wrap around in the Gulf of Alaska here, and we get some ridging out of the Pacific, helps drop this trough down over the Pacific Northwest, and you can see that really cold air set up shop here. That's the next weather maker here coming for the Pacific Northwest. Here we go, 200 millibars here. This is way up in the atmosphere. You see that jet stream here, and watch this thing get really carved out here across Pacific Northwest. Look at that. Just basically a perfect bullseye here across some of Washington and much of the Pacific Northwest as this trough carves out down along the coast of North America. This is looking at 500 millibars, 18,000 feet. You can kind of see the ridge protecting us a little bit today and maybe a little bit tomorrow before it really flattens out, becomes zonal, and then we get this deep trough dropping down across Pacific Northwest. Just kind of giving you several different diagrams and visual representations of what's going on with our atmosphere here. This is looking at European yesterday afternoon's run. Put it into motion here, and you can kind of see the initial weak system try to slide down. Not much of a precipitation maker there, but you can see the troughing kind of hang out here as we go on in through the weekend. You can see the spin in the atmosphere. We're going to get multiple rounds of precipitation possibility for much of the area, and you can see some of this showing up for the higher peaks as some snowfall across the Rockies from the higher terrain at BC, Cascades of Washington, Oregon, even the Blue Mountains out there as well. We'll look at some of those totals here in a moment. As you can see, this unsettled weather hanging with us here on in through the mid portion of next week. This is the European last night's run here. This is probability of snowfall greater than 1 inch, equal to or greater than 1 inch here. And you can see the best chance across some of the Rockies, BC, but you can see some of the North Cascades of Washington, Cascades of Oregon, some of the Blue Mountains here, some of the higher terrain there for Idaho and Montana, down into Wyoming, maybe Yellowstone as well here. So yeah, there is a potential. So anybody off in the backcountry here, be prepared. This is a pretty chilly upper level low setting up over the region. This is looking at total precipitation in inches. This is also last night's European run here. Now, see if we scroll out all the way 144 hours, it'd be about Tuesday night here, and you can see that signal for some higher amounts of precipitation across the Cascades. And of course, across BC, Alberta, the Rocky Mountains here. And we'll watch these individual systems come in one by one. Probably starting by tomorrow, we'll take a look at the high resolution models here and try to pinpoint who's going to get what. This is looking at the GFS ensemble. This is an average of all 30 GFS ensemble runs. You can see the ridge holding on there becomes zonal, and good agreement with the European here with that trough really just dropping right down over Washington state here, including the entire Pacific Northwest. Big ridge out here. You can imagine the northerly flow here allowing for that cool air to move down across the west coast of North America. Hangs out for a bit here too as well. We're just going out and looking at the GFS, see what it says in the extended, and you can see this persistent troughing remain here all the way in through next week. activity kind of just hangs out there as well all the way on through the end of June, and is still showing this troughing here continuing on. So yeah, I mean, we're looking out in Fantasyland at this point, but the GFS is kind of bullish on that troughing remaining active. This is looking at the National Blend of Models. You can see Seattle at 73 today. It's not going to be too bad. We're going to warm up nicely. It's a little bit above average here across some of the area. And then as we go on into tomorrow, not bad. I mean, look at the Willamette Valley up into the mid-80s down for the southern portion there. And you can see eastern Washington warming up nicely, some of the valleys of BC as well. But then we start moving towards Saturday. You see the temperature start to shift here as we get the onshore flow west of the Cascades. And by Sunday, a lot of the region here is going to be below normal, well below normal, maybe 10 degrees or so for Seattle, maybe even more than that. And then Monday, another chilly day here across the region, and Tuesday again, probably looking at 3 days at 10 degrees below normal here for Seattle and some of the areas here across Pacific Northwest. And you see the higher terrain of the Rockies really cooling off here as we go on in through early next week as well. Start to bounce back a little bit as we get into towards the midweek portion, but we can have low confidence here. We'll have to just wait and see the evolution of this trough and how fast it kicks out and see what the models say in the upcoming days here. But it's always hope in the extended, right? You can see Friday warming up quite nicely as we be back to some above average conditions here across places west of the Cascades. But, we'll take that with a grain of salt and look at that one day at a time. Here's Seattle Tacoma International Airport. Yesterday afternoon's European run, daily high-low temperatures here on the European deterministic run. So this just takes the initial conditions best we know them and runs them out. This is not an ensemble forecast. You can clearly see the chilly temperatures here. Look at Tuesday, not even getting out of the 50s there. And then we start to bounce back there potentially at the end of next week. This is looking at Seattle Tacoma again here as well. You can see that trough setting up over the region here with potential bounce back into the extended. So we've got a couple of decent days coming up here before we start to bring this trough across the region. 6 to 10 day temperature probability outlook. This was issued yesterday, and you can see the bullseye across much of the west here. Here's a 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook here. This goes through June 24th. Again, the Pacific Northwest is bullseye there. And here we go at the sea surface temperature anomalies. I like to update this, make sure it's updated here, and just kind of run this out. It's been pretty interesting watching the La Nina effect here kind of dissipate here across the equatorial Pacific. You notice this cool water here coming off the coast of California there. It kind of got wiped away a little bit, and it's still kind of hanging on here and bouncing back as we go through mid-June here. So this cold water doesn't want to give up here, and El Nino is kind of, pretty well establishing itself by this time, and we're almost certainly headed towards an El Nino and potentially a strong El Nino as we go through the fall and winter months. This is looking at the CFS, and again, I showed this yesterday, but potentially strong El Nino coming up here. That's determined by that 1.5 line there. Anything above 1 is considered a moderate El Nino, and we're almost certainly headed towards that category. And again, you can see the warm tongue here as we go through September, October, November, December, and January of 2024 shown there. And again, the probabilities here are very high, virtually, for the most part, it's basically 100% locked that we're going towards El Nino coming up here. You can see La Nina, virtually no chance here, and neutral conditions, very low percentage there. This is looking at an interactive map here. This is the National Resources Canada, and you can see anything you see red highlighted here is extreme fire danger here. And you'll notice there is some lower danger now. This recent rainfall out here has helped out, but you can see there are active fires still in this region producing smoke. And, hopefully we can get this precipitation in with this next trough and really help out some of this fire danger here across a lot of British Columbia here. In certain setups here, we can introduce a lot of smoke from British Columbia down into the lower mainland here, into Western Washington, Oregon, all across Pacific Northwest. So it's important that we try to suppress some of this fire activity here. It's just what it is. Hopefully we're not going to be dealing with a smoky summer coming up here as we have been for many years here in the last decade or so. And if you look closely here, you can kind of see some of that smoke being generated by some of the fires there. It's infiltrated down into eastern Washington even a bit here as well. This is the visible satellite imagery here, upper level low, kind of keeping things a little bit suppressed here across some of Alberta. But yeah, hopefully this trough can help bring some much needed rainfall across the region here and help squelch some of these fires. So that's back to the initial stage here, and strong jet stream. This energy is going to bring that next trough down across the region. You are definitely going to feel this one, folks. We're going to be below average for at least 3 days here across the region, some places by 10 degrees or more. So should be interesting here. And we'll look at, again, a little bit more detail on what kind of snowfall we're going to expect. Are we going to get thunderstorms across the region? You could even get a severe storm or two as you push off further to the east here through maybe Idaho, Montana, Yellowstone, as that low ejects across the region as well. But we'll look at that in some more detail coming up in a moment. Hope you guys are liking these videos. Click like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys again tomorrow.